Hi, Jason. How are you? Very nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. If you have carrying on conversations, would ask that you take them out into the hallway. People will not want to miss quieting down and hearing from my friend Fatih Birol. Fatih, thanks for joining us again on the campus of Columbia University, again at our Global Energy Summit, a special one to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Center on Global Energy Policy. It's really an honor to have you back with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. So I just came from JFK, directly here. So I wasn't able to follow the discussions before, just a bit of the last bit of Larry. But at the cost of repeating what several colleagues since morning have said, may I congratulate you for what you have achieved.
It's okay to repeat, people, if you're saying this.
Okay, but I don't know what they said, but honestly, you know that I follow this since 10 years, what you have achieved. In 10 years of time, you built an institution here from scratch as a thought leader in the United States, but also beyond. So big congratulations to you. I know where it was 10 years ago, and look at where you are now. And I don't know if I may ask all the colleagues to join me to congratulate Jason Bordoff.
Thank you. Thanks, Fatih. I really appreciate that. You've been an important friend and mentor and supporter of the work we've been doing here at Columbia for many years. So really grateful for that, and thanks for being back with us. So let's talk about what's happening in the energy and climate world. I'm trying to think when I saw you last. I've seen you since then, but one of the things that I enjoyed watching was Davos this year, where you were on a panel with Greta Thunberg and other youth activists. And I was wondering what that was like for you, and tell us where you agreed and maybe disagreed.
Oh, when I just talked with Larry, and I talked with Greta. So I don't see any problem with that. If we want to solve our climate problem without forgetting the energy security, I think we need to build a grand coalition. Grand coalition consisting of the governments, energy companies, civil society, investors who sincerely, I underline here sincerely, believe in the fight against climate change. So it is the reason I talked with, I had a press conference with Greta, and afterwards I had a meeting with the major CEO of a major mining company. I really enjoy the civil society's push for real action on climate change, scrutiny, and it doesn't mean that I agree with everything what they are doing 100%, but we need that dynamism and push coming from there.
Where are we in that fight against climate change? The most recent IPCC report highlighted the urgency of climate, but it also, if you're reading it honestly, seemed to suggest 1.5 degrees, seems almost maybe impossible at this point. Is that right, or is there still a path?
It is becoming more and more difficult, but it is still not impossible. So I think what the world doesn't see yet is that a new global energy economy is emerging much faster than many people think. If I may, you know me, my English is not good, but I know numbers. I have to give a couple of numbers. One, we made this 2 years ago net zero pathway to 2050, which became a headache for many people, but for others it became a guide. So when you look at the year 2022, solar installations in the entire world in 2022 was exactly in line with what needs to happen in that roadmap to net zero 2050, which is 1.5 degrees. Perfectly in line, solar. Heat pumps. Heat pumps are growing so strongly in the United States, In the US, I'm sure you all know the installations of heat pumps are much faster than the gas boilers. In Europe, it is the same. China remains by far the largest heat pump market. Electric cars. I still don't know why the electric car dynamics are not taken into consideration in the discussion of oil markets. Only 2 years ago, 4% of all the cars sold in the world were electric cars, and last year it was 15%. And 2030, with the most conservative view, China, US, Europe, 3 largest car markets, every second car will be an electric car. Every second car. So these are the implications for oil demand. Nuclear is making a comeback. I don't know if Mr. Tanaka is here. He is here, of course. He must have talked, I don't know, he must have talked about nuclear, didn't he? Okay. So nuclear is making a strong comeback around the world. So we are seeing a very strong growth of clean energy around the world. And now coming back to the industry, large-scale fossil fuel investments, okay? If the companies are making today a large-scale fossil fuel investment, they are not only, in my view, making a bet against the world will reach its climate targets, but also, looking at the couple of numbers I gave to you, they are also taking an important business risk, whether or not there will be a decent return on capital. I want to say this. So there are 2 risks they are taking, large-scale fossil fuel investments. One, a bet against the world will not reach its target, and the second one is a business risk.
And I think it just help us, we spend a lot of time with our students here with the numbers, as you said, helping people, help people understand the scale and magnitude of the global energy system. I think when people hear about the trends you've just described, one could think, we're on track, it's not impossible, we can get there. And you just described how optimistic you are, say, about the outlook for EVs. And at least in the baseline scenario, the stated policies, maybe everyone will do what they promised to do, but where we are headed with current policies, oil demand's growing into the next decade, even with all of that growth in EVs. Yeah. How big is this global energy system, and what does that mean for the scale and magnitude of the change?
I'd make it very simple. For the current policies, we make our World Energy Outlook, how we see the world every year. When we published it, I think 8 months ago, we said that even with the current policies, if we don't push the climate strongly, which would be a mistake, but even if we don't do it, we see global fossil fuel consumption will peak end of 2020s. But now, 8 months later today, I believe it will be even earlier than late 2020s, global fossil fuel peak and decline. And I believe decline will be even steeper than we thought 9 months ago.
A fossil fuel peak or oil peak?
Fossil fuel peak. And in terms of oil, I believe the transportation for oil will peak in 3-4 years of time, but petchem will still grow. But we see the oil demand at least flattening, if not decline. The EVs and the electric buses, I didn't mention that electric buses may well surprise several oil market analysts, the growth there.
And as long as you're giving us numbers, when I talked to Larry Fink about, I think I got your projection right for how much investment is needed in emerging and developing economies. But on the whole, how much investment do we need for a successful energy transition, and what's going to take to mobilize that amount of capital? Yeah. I asked him how we're going to be able to do that in emerging and developing economies. He said, I don't know.
So may I just make first a clarification? Many colleagues talk about we would like to see decarbonization. This is, in my view, this is a very general concept, decarbonization. If the global energy consumption, the global energy system, decarbonize every year 0.5%, this is decarbonization, but it doesn't help anything at all. So if our aim is to reach 1.5 degrees, one has to be careful. The decarbonization may well be an expression in order to not to say commit for 1.5. I want to make it clear here. So if our aim is 1.5, the numbers is the following. Today, the world clean energy investment is slightly more than $1 trillion. In order to be in line with the 1.5 degree target that we have, this 1.5 in 10 years of time will need to go to 4 trillion. So going to 4 trillion is a challenge, but the bigger challenge is bulk of this growth from today to 4 trillion need to come from emerging and developing countries. This is, if you ask me, Jason, there are thousands of challenges to reach our climate goals. If you ask me to pick up one, for me, it is how we are going to extract the clean energy investment in developing countries. This is the top challenge for me, the top difficulty.
And you mentioned a minute ago the famous Net Zero 2050 study and the headaches it caused some people, or maybe what was misunderstood or understood differently about it. And I think one of the headline-making findings from it was if we were on track for those goals and that much investment was going into clean energy, investment in new oil and gas would not be needed. That's not the world we're in today. So just help people understand first what that report found. Did it find that stopping investment in new oil and gas would mean we achieve our climate goals, or did it mean something else? And if there's a gap today, how do we navigate that gap?
Exactly, very good. So first of all, the world still needs a investment for oil and gas. We are using oil and gas. But what we are saying is the following. We wouldn't need new oil, gas fields, coal mines to develop completely new develop. And to do that, we have to first bring the demand for oil, gas, and coal down. Without bringing oil, gas, and coal down 2050, so we cannot reach the 1.5. There is nothing, I mean, it is not because IEA is a bad student or we want to create a problem. This is what the scientists tell us. Either we should say we don't believe it, but if we believe it, if it is a 1.5 degrees target, oil, gas, coal consumption needs to come down, unabated oil, gas, and coal. There is nothing else. So if they come down to reach the 1.5, then we have to see that the current oil, gas, and coal fields or mines are enough to meet that declining oil, gas, and coal demand. And we have to invest in the current ones, the existing ones, increase the production there, but we wouldn't need new oil, gas, and coal production to bring them new oil and gas fields. And I tell you one thing, it's discussed a lot. If an oil company says, I am going to increase my oil production in the next 10 years by 3 million barrels per day, I have no problem. I mean, it is their strategy, the old same story. Billie Holiday, the old same story. But if they say, I am going to increase my oil production by 3 million barrels per day, and my company's strategy is in line with the Paris Agreement, 1.5, this doesn't work. I am very sorry, one has to choose one of them. You cannot, on one hand, to see your oil production to increase by 3 million barrels per day, and on the other hand, you say, I am for 1.5. In the absence of a huge revolution on the CCS or something like that, it will not work. So that's it. It is the bitter reality we are in today, and otherwise it wouldn't work. Because we are in a very difficult situation, our carbon budget is limited. So this is the way that the oil companies, unfortunately, or gas companies have to make a choice. And I know that many oil companies, gas companies are doing excellent work in terms of the carbon capture, in terms of hydrogen, in terms of solar. More and more are coming to solar. But I have to tell this, in my view, the bitter truth that these two targets, 3 million barrels per day and 1.5 together, doesn't work.
So what does that mean for the role of the oil and gas industry as a transition, what you would want to see from companies like that in a world where you're seeing analysis all the time, maybe written by some people in this room, about risks of underinvestment, about the potential for higher prices in the years ahead. When companies scale back their transition plans, their share price goes up sometimes. What do they do about that?
First of all, when we talk about oil companies, we automatically think, I mean, especially if we discuss it in United States and in Europe, we talk about we think they are only IOCs. But when we talk about the other day about the revenues they make, I mean, last year, oil and gas companies made a historical revenues about $4 trillion US, up from the average 1.5, and everybody thought that this 4 trillion is the IOCs make this handsome money. But out of this 4 trillion, 85% of this revenues was for the NOCs. Only 15% was IOCs. Yes, investments need to be made, but these investments, in my view, for climate reasons and for business reasons, they shouldn't be large-scale investments and looking in the investment there. And today, Jason, if you make an investment or start a new project today, the first oil will come to the markets in 5, 6, 7 years of time. Whether or not the world needs increased oil production in 7 years of time, in my view, is a big bet.
And in the most recent World Energy Outlook, there was a section I thought was interesting, maybe because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, which is what you called guidelines for a secure energy transition. What are the risks with energy security in the transition? And one of those is what we were just talking about. I think you described it as if we don't synchronize declines in investment and supply with declines in demand, if you stop new investment in oil and gas, but you don't get to those huge levels of clean energy investment you were talking about, then you're just underinvesting, prices are high, there's more volatility. Talk a little bit about that risk, but also what are the other risks? And what do we do about the risks to a more secure energy transition?
So, I mean, when I gave the numbers, so much solar panels, electric cars, I don't know, hydrogen, the electrolyzers, and others, I want to bring a new energy security. I'm sure you discussed this morning. I guess you have so many good colleagues. It is the clean energy technology manufacturing. Okay. Today, when we look at the picture, which we did in one of our recent reports, China has an incredible dominance. If I can give one number or two numbers. Batteries, this is one of the most important nerve center of the clean energy transition. 75% of the battery capacity manufacturing today is in China. 75% China, 25% everybody put together. In Europe, a couple of months ago, I don't know if many colleagues from Europe here, we were very happy because in Italy, there was a new solar battery manufacturing was opened. The European leaders were there, Italian leaders. But it was a big thing in Europe. It is now the biggest manufacturing factory. And the size of it is only 10 days of Chinese manufacturing capacity, 10 days. It's incredible. So just to put the things in a context. I am sure you discussed the Inflation Reduction Act. If Inflation Reduction Act is fully implemented, seamlessly implemented, in terms of batteries, the 75% of the Chinese role will go down only to 55%. So still 2030, China will be dominating. The solar is the same. I'm not saying China is this, China is that, but any country who plays such a dominant role in all these clean energy technologies is a risk. Diversification is the magic word. In Europe, we have, Jason, we have understood it once again that what happened on 24th of February, Europe, 4 decades, more than 4 decades, chose Russia as the main delivery of its energy imports. The economy, European economic model was based on abundant and cheap Russian energy. IEA has several times warned the European countries. And in my view, when this war settles down, the dust settles down, European governments need to sit down seriously and make a self-critic. We all make mistakes. Every government, every organization make mistakes, but Europe made, in my view, 2 strategic mistakes when it comes to the energy. One is the reliance and over-reliance on one single country in such a big time. And the second one is turning its shoulder back to nuclear power and just putting the nuclear power aside. And we are now paying for the cost of it in Europe.
And that European response to that invasion and the subsequent energy crisis, I mean, the energy crisis started before the invasion, and you wrote about it as well at the time, is that we've seen increases in investments in LNG infrastructure, some increases in use of coal plants. We've also seen increases in heat pumps and clean energy. Is it going to accelerate or not, the transition, this crisis?
Look, we criticize Europe all the time because Europe is a democratic institution, democratic countries. I mean, if Europe, I live in France, I mean, it is the nation hobby is you criticize everybody and you disagree with everybody. So everything happens in Europe. We also criticize Europe, but to be honest with you, when we look at the 24th of February last year and today, Europe did a good job, okay? So I remember the spokesperson of Kremlin said, Europe will freeze and European economy will be destroyed after 24th of February. Now, in Europe, we didn't have a blackout, major blackout. European economy didn't go to recession. All clean energy technologies went up, and European CO2 emissions declined by 2.5% in 1 year. And Russia's oil and gas export revenues in 1 year of time declined by 60%, bringing a major deficit for the Russian budget. Now, we were lucky in Europe. I should also accept that. We had a mild winter. China had a bad economic year, therefore imported less LNG from markets. We were able to, in Europe, get a lot of LNG from US, but also from other countries. And we were able to go through this winter with some bruises here and there, economic and social bruises. We are still suffering under that. But Europe went through this 40 years of reliance of a country, Russia, with all oil, gas, and everything. And now we are coming to spring, and next winter will be still challenging, but I think we have all the reasons to congratulate the European countries that they came together. There was a solidarity, which is not taken for granted, I can tell you, in Europe. There was unification. It is also very good. But next winter will be also challenging.
Yeah, just so say more about that. Is Europe sort of past the crisis? It can now survive without Russian pipeline gas, or was there a lot of luck involved? And we're going to have winter after winter for at least several years of energy crisis.
Now, for Europe, one thing, this winter will be difficult, and the winter after. But for the gas markets, I want to tell you one thing. When we look at oil and gas markets, we have different pictures. For gas markets, starting from 2025, 25, 26, 27, 3 years, we are going to see huge amount of new LNG capacity coming to the markets, about 7 TCF, okay? At least 7 TCF, 185, 190 BCM, 2 new US FIDs, Canada, Qatar. There will be flood of LNG coming to market. So I should tell you that. And it would put the gas security concerns a bit less of an importance for the governments. But from Europe and from the others' point of view, next 2-3 years will be difficult. But in terms of gas, more gas will be coming, and many European countries built a lot of LNG terminals. And I should also tell you this, Jason, before 24th of February, when you look at the European gas consumption, it was already in a decline. There was a decline of European gas consumption. Our problem in Europe is now how to replace the Russian gas with LNG, with renewables, with others. I think we were okay this winter. Next winter will be challenging, but the one after might be easier.
Well, and some of that LNG obviously is still Russia, and Brussels is talking about prohibiting Russian LNG. Is that something Europe can do without?
I think Europe should be able to do without Russian LNG. I personally believe Russia played the energy card. They failed, and they should fail. And Europe should do everything they should do in order to make sure that the European citizens don't pay Russian government.
We just saw several OPEC countries voluntarily cut production, saying they were worried about a weak economy and maybe an oil price decline. At the same time, you see, as we said a moment ago, concerns about underinvestment. What's your outlook for the oil market?
I mean, the headlines of the newspapers and the analysts were, it's a surprise cut. Why it's a surprise? Because almost all the institutions looking at the second half of 2023 oil markets, it is IEA, it is OPEC, it is the EIA, they already saw a tight market second half of this year. And this cut comes at I think, unfortunate time, 1.6 million barrels per day. We expect 1 million barrels per day of increase from the non-OPEC producers, including the United States. But it will tighten the markets second half. And it is unfortunate because European and the global economy is still fragile. Inflation pressures are there. Therefore, I would think this was not a very helpful surprise. There are some good surprises and bad surprises in the world, and this is definitely for the global economy, it's a bad surprise.
Meaning, or you see oil prices continuing to rise?
When you look at the tightness in the markets, there's already tightness. Demand, we expect demand on everybody around 2 million barrels per day, and they are cutting 1.6. And the OPEC, non-OPEC production will increase 1 million barrels per day. So there may be a tightness under normal circumstances. We could see a tightness in the second half, and this could push the prices upwards. Already $85. Which is already the risk for many emerging countries. I was yesterday with the Indian minister in Paris, India, a major oil importer, a big headache for the Indian economy, even though they are benefiting from maybe some cheaper oil imports from Russia.
Maybe we're celebrating an anniversary. Next year, you celebrate an anniversary. Yeah. 50 years of the International Energy Agency. It was born out of the oil crises of the 1970s. As you've said, this is the first global energy crisis. It's not just an oil crisis, it's lots of different fuels. And you've identified some of the new crises with or risks with the transition. You've heard elected leaders say we don't want to go from dependence on a few countries for oil to a few countries for minerals, and you talked about China a moment ago. Talk about the evolution of the IEA. Many of the countries that are most important to minerals, may not be full members now. Some of the largest importers, like China and India, are not full members now. How is the IEA evolving, and how does it need to evolve to ensure energy security in a multi-decade transition?
So I see we have 1 minute, 20 seconds, so I can tell you. Next 50 years in 1 minute. So I would say I would like to see an IEA doing 3 things. One, continue to have the leadership in the fight against climate change within the energy sector. This is very clear. Second, continue to strive to be an organization of all countries and their preoccupations, not only the rich countries of the world. And third, in terms of energy security, while energy security for oil and gas is important, there is an emerging energy security. I mentioned to you from critical minerals to clean energy technology manufacturing, I hope and I expect, and we are taking some steps, everybody will hear soon, to build a safety network among the countries around the world to support each other in the case of a challenge in terms of availability of the critical minerals and clean energy supply chains.
Is that a sharing agreement on strategic stocks?
No, we are working on that, but this is the aspiration I have. These are, in fact, all three are aspirations, and I hope the 50-year anniversary will IEA will make it those aspirations, they will cement them, the ministers and the others we will have. IEA was founded by an American man, Henry Kissinger. I don't know if he lives in New York or not, so, and I am happy to say that we are very happy that we were founded as a oil security organization, but we changed a lot, we want to change a lot, and fight against climate change, energy security, traditional one, and the new form energy security are main preoccupations for the IEA, but always looking from a global perspective, not from the perspective of the advanced economies.
Well, you have an extraordinary team there, and we've been lucky that some of them have come to help us here at Columbia. Some have gone from Columbia to the IEA, and I'm sure if you're hiring, there are people here who would love to go live in Paris.
I already get a lot of colleagues when I was having popcorn. Many colleagues ask for.
So thanks, Fatih, for the work you and your colleagues do on behalf of all of us, the transition and ensuring energy security around the world, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much.